neighbors to know. We haven't filmed in a really long time, and I'm super excited that you guys are here. If you're watching live, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're not, well, hi anyway. So today's episode, we haven't filmed in a while. It's actually October now here in New England. I drove in today, and the trees are red and orange and green, all sorts of colors, and it's just such a pretty thing to see. If you're not in New England, you can just picture it. But there are changes that are happening, and some people see that as, oh no, snow's coming. And the guest that we have coming, or who's here today, I see as having gone through quite a few changes in her life. She is a powerhouse. Some of the changes are expected. She chose to learn how to rock climb. She actually has taken me hiking, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And there's some changes that happened to her that were unexpected. Last year, at the age of 32, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and me wanting to share her with all of you, I figured it was very good timing for me to introduce to you Miss Johanna Gorton.
Thanks so much, Jen.
Hi, Johanna.
Hi.
I started going through your resume in my head, but there's so many things to list, like rock climber, ice climber, Reiki master, wellness enthusiast, you're an actress, there's more.
Massage therapist, craniosacral therapist, neurokinetic therapist. Yeah, I've got a few.
You got a few things on your
list,
belt.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see you here, and it's funny when I think of you, I don't think of. I mean, yes, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and you've gone through that. That's not how I see you at all. To share with everybody, so knowing that you did rock climbing and ice climbing, I wanted to get back into the whole hiking scene. And I'm like, okay, so who better to ask than to, you, who's like, you got your stuff together, your guns are going, I'll be in good hands. And I knew you were very warm when I first met you. And then we were going, well, I call it rock climbing. You probably just call it hiking in the woods one day. And I'm on this boulder, which seems like 30 feet high. It was probably maybe 4 or so. And I didn't know how to get down without, I've hurt my right foot many times, so I was nervous about hurting myself. And I'm like, well, I want to sit on the edge and just kind of scuttle myself down like a 2-year-old toddler on steps. Yeah. And then you offered your hand out to me and just said, hold my hand. So in my head, I'm like, I'm a grown woman. I could do it all on my own. And then I thought, why would I do that and potentially hurt myself? And I held your hand, and you helped me down, and I didn't fall, and I'm still here. And I think I burnt like 8,000 calories that day.
Yeah, there was a lot of boulder scrambling, and
Yeah, but there's a lot of trust that I put in you, and I imagine around you that's what surrounds you. That's what I see in you.
Thank you.
But the craniosacral therapy thing, I had no idea what that is. So just as a starter, for those that don't know, what on earth is craniosacral therapy?
Sure. So craniosacral therapy is a very gentle, hands-on practice. It's done face up on a massage table. Usually the client is fully clothed. I am also able to incorporate it into massage. It works directly with the central nervous system. Okay. So it switches your body over from your fight or flight to the rest, digest, the healing mode of your body, and it unwinds the deep connective tissue that surrounds the spine, and in releasing that, you actually get a lot of other releases. So I've had people who have, releases in their arms or their legs, their feet, even if I'm just working on their neck with the craniosacral therapy. So the cranio is like cranium, so it's from your head all the way to your sacrum or your tailbone. And it's super relaxing. It's great for people with ADD, ADHD, post-traumatic stress disorder, people with sleep conditions. So it's just so relaxing. I like to end a lot of my massages with it. It's a fabulous tool.
And you just recently got your certification, or so recently, in neurokinetic?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So neurokinetic therapy is about identifying muscular imbalances. So oftentimes when there's a compensation pattern at work, so like you said, you injured your ankle several times, that tends to then be an indicator for future injuries. Yes. So when you have something like that, some kind of trauma to the body, it can be surgery, it can be a sprain, it can also just be, stress, and that's where you hold your stress. Then your body creates this compensation pattern around it because it wants to still move forward. It just has to figure out how to do that around whatever the trauma was. And so neurokinetic therapy identifies which muscles overworking and which muscles underworking. And there's a couple of different levels, so it can even get down to like which direction your eyes are looking in while you're doing a specific movement.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then correcting those, and then I give people homework, and they do the homework, and that actually creates a long-term fix, as opposed to just kind of, sometimes with massage, when you work on something, it just keeps coming back because you're not identifying the actual cause, you're just dealing with the symptoms.
Gotcha. So how long have you been involved with like massage? You seem like a lot of what you're doing is involved with, your body, your mind, that whole connection?
Yeah, I mean, I really see the body as a whole self. Holistic is the right word for it. So I've been doing massage and Reiki for 14 years this February. And then I added the craniosacral therapy about 7 years ago, and then the neurokinetic therapy a year and a half ago. And so it just helps me to address the different levels of the person's body, because sometimes something is manifesting physically that isn't physical in origin. It could be either energetic or spiritual, however you want to perceive that. Sometimes it's mental, which I can't do as much about. But
yes, you do. It's just the way you are. It's the way I see you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not. I mean, truly.
Yeah.
You just have a very calming sense about you. And when I was learning about you, and then I heard, I think through a conversation with somebody else about breast cancer, and I thought I misheard, so I just left it, let it go. And even just recently, I didn't realize that it was just last year that you were diagnosed.
Yeah, January 30th of last year was, I got the phone call. So that kind of kicked off the whole treatment process.
You were 32?
I was 31 at the time of diagnosis, but it was only a couple of months before my 32nd birthday. So it was about 2 months, a little less than 2 months between when I got the diagnosis and when I went through surgery. And then that was just 2 weeks, the surgery was 2 weeks before my birthday.
Which is, I mean, a few things there just intrigue and frustrate me at the same time. There was some research that I've done in that 1 in 8 women in the U.S. are diagnosed with invasive breast cancer. And I go for my yearly mammograms, and you walk into that room, and you go to get changed out, and I'm a data person. Most of the robes are purple, some of them are green. And I think, okay, I don't want to be that 1 in 8. Should I pick purple? Should I pick green? Does it really matter? And then you sit in that waiting room and you're looking around at everybody else waiting to go in for their appointments. And I think to myself every time, one person in this room, or possibly 2, are going to get really bad news today. And I pray that it's not me. And what a horrifying thing to think of. And I remember going when I was 33, was when my doctor recommended me have my first mammogram because of issues that I was having, and everything came back fine. But the hospital turned me away 3 times. They told me I was too young, I shouldn't be there, I was 33.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you're turning me away. And granted, things were okay, but it's not like you have to be a certain age to be diagnosed with cancer. And that's what I find frustrating.
Yeah, and 18 to 39, which is what they classify as like young adults, is actually the largest growing population of oncology diagnosis in the country. So 70,000 new cases every year of young adults being diagnosed with cancer.
So walk us through what that was like for you. Was it a mammogram that you went for? Did something happen that spurred you to head to the doctor? What happened?
So I actually I'm pretty active with doing self-tests and just kind of like being aware of what's going on in my own body, especially being a massage therapist and everything. I'm just very, very in tune with my body. And I felt a lump. It felt about like a pea size in my left breast. and immediately booked an appointment actually with Planned Parenthood, and went there, utilized their wellness services, and they were like, well, it's probably not cancer, but we do recommend having it checked out. And so then I was scheduled for a mammogram and an ultrasound. And they did find a couple of areas that they were concerned about, but they were still like, it's probably fine. I have dense breast tissue, which makes it a little harder sometimes to determine whether or not there's anything going on. And it also can make you more inclined to develop abnormal growths, whether it's cancer or other things going on in the breasts. And so after those, I ended up going for 2 different appointments, but 5 biopsies of different areas to just determine whether or not there was cancer. Once they figured out that there was cancer, how much was in there. And I was lucky I caught it pretty early. So it was very treatable, but still it was very put you into the fight or flight mode, certainly. And being in my early 30s, I had no family history of cancer. I eat well, I exercise frequently. So they're like, there's not really a reason that this should happen, but that's how a lot of the new cases are as well. There's not really necessarily a lot of hereditary, like family background. And so after that, it was just kind of like putting one foot in front of the other and just trying to get through it. I was lucky enough that my family lives a couple of hours away. My dad drove out and brought me to every single appointment that I had. And then it was March 21st of last year, I had surgery. My mom came out and she stayed with me for a few days to just kind of like make sure I was up and moving around. But after surgery, it was 6 weeks of healing time, even though I was able to do just a lumpectomy and not have to go through a full mastectomy. And being such a physical person where massage is a very physical job, I was out of work for that whole time. I couldn't pick up more than 5 pounds, so that meant not being able to go grocery shopping for myself. I mean, a gallon of milk weighs more than 5 pounds, so you really have to be aware of what it is that you're buying, even.
And to me that's so intriguing because people hear me being an outsider of it, but having friends that have gone through it, it's like, how can I help you? Well, we can do grocery shopping because we know that you're tired, or we know that you're nauseous if you have, chemo, whatever. That side you see, but when you talk about something what you think is as simple as like going grocery shopping and picking up milk, were there other like daily things that people wouldn't think of that you had to face through your...
I couldn't drive. Because of where the seatbelt comes across, like I couldn't drive for the time that I was healing. It was a challenge to think about going out. Like, I'd be like, oh, I've got, I'm taking time off. Maybe I can go to like a museum or something like that that's nice and quiet. But then you have to be worried about being in a crowd, somebody accidentally bumping you, and also the body image issues that you go through when you're going through treatment. It can be very challenging to like accept yourself, even though you know that you did what you considered best for yourself. It can be hard to kind of accept that after the surgery, and especially after chemotherapy, radiation, any of those. Trying to think of some of the other. I couldn't pick up my cat because he weighs more than 5 pounds.
Or I would think if you have a larger pet, if they're jumping up on you, you'd have to be careful of that too.
Yep.
Or even if somebody wants to go and give you a hug.
Right. Well, that's it. I was just going to say, with radiation and chemotherapy, you have to be really concerned with germs. So that's another challenge with going out in public, whether it's grocery shopping or trying to do something that kind of takes your mind off of it. And as you mentioned, the fatigue, I had just gotten back into running when I got my diagnosis, and actually running helped me through kind of leading up to the surgery as being a stress reducer. And then I was so fatigued after surgery and after radiation that was how I started to measure my recovery, was how far I could make it around the Chestnut Hill Reservoir, which is right up the street from where I live. And so, it would take me, I could maybe walk up the half mile, wait for a half hour and then walk back. Whereas before I was running around, it was a 3-mile loop, no problem. And so that was like for me, kind of a measure of how I'm recovering.
So you had family that was there to support you. The emotional aspects of it too. You know, what was there for you to? I mean, you look at you now, and you're smiling and beamy, and you know, it's been a year and a half since all this happened for you. What was it that turned for you to? I mean, you have a great story of the organization that you found. What was it to turn? I mean, were you in a sad place? I mean, to me, I'm thinking it's your body. You know, your body's not your own. Your body's doing this thing that you have no control over. Mm-hmm. I would think there's some helplessness behind all of it.
Yeah.
But what do you do with that?
Yeah, so helplessness is definitely was a big part of it. There was a feeling of betrayal, you know, that your own body would turn against you. Again, where I kind of came from being so active, to not be able to do anything was really, really disempowering. And as you said, like the helpless feeling. I didn't share with a lot of my friends. So actually, a lot of them are finding out now. As,
like right now?
Yeah, like right now. Yep. I didn't tell a lot of people around me what was going on.
Why?
So I felt like I was kind of storing my energy for myself, just trying to get through. And at one point, people were so supportive that at one point it almost felt overwhelming because I was trying to assure everybody else that I was okay, but not taking the time to actually be okay. And so at one point I was just like, and I found like Facebook was just overwhelming for me, you know, at a time where as a young adult, everybody's getting married and having kids, and you're kind of feeling like you're stuck in this place and trying to just survive. It's really challenging to like watch everybody, not that you fault them for it by any means, but it can be really challenging to just like watch people moving forward with their lives and doing all these things. And yeah, you're kind of stuck in survival mode.
So knowing that your friends are watching right now, I mean, I'm sure, I would guess that they would say, you know, what can I do for you or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were there right now, like watching you and you know, there were things that you didn't say. Is there stuff that you wish you would have said to them or that, you know, you were really looking for but afraid to ask?
Yeah, a lot of it was like being afraid to I didn't want to have to answer questions at the time because I didn't have all of the answers. You know, when people ask you like, what can I do? It's just kind of like, I don't know.
Pick up my cat.
Right. Come and visit me.
Yeah.
So that is something that I didn't ask for that I really could have used was the support of having people come and visit me at home when I wasn't able to like go out. And so because of that, I felt really isolated. And some of that was self-imposed. And some of that was just the people that I did share with didn't always know what to say, which is normal. And that's fine. You know, it's just being there is enough. But there is this feeling of like depression and isolation, especially where you're seeing people on social media, you know, kind of like going out and doing all of these amazing things.
But then, ironically, you then went out and did some amazing things.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things that I found was there weren't a lot of resources for young adults. There's becoming more and more, but at the time when I was looking, there weren't a lot of programs out there. There was a lot for kids, and there were a lot for older adults that are doing studies for research. One of the programs I did find is First Ascents, and they're an amazing nonprofit organization that caters to young adults diagnosed with cancer and other serious conditions like multiple sclerosis. And so they do these outdoor adventure trips, which are unbelievable. Rock climbing, ice climbing, paddle boarding, kayaking, surfing, like you name it, pick your poison. I chose an ice climbing trip, which was in February of this year to Ouray, Colorado.
Was that the first time you gone ice climbing?
That was the first time I'd gone ice climbing.
Oh, okay.
Actually, before my diagnosis, it's something I would have been like, I'm okay. Like I've rock climbed for a long time, and I was just like, ice climbing sounds really challenging and cold, which it was. But it was just such a transformative experience. I mean, they provide everything. They cater, so there's a chef on hand for the week. You're in amongst a community of people who've all gone through similar experiences. You know, we had several people with who had also gone through breast cancer. We had leukemia. There were a number of different types of cancer that were represented on the trip. You have these supportive lead staff who just organize everything, drive you everywhere. You know, they're there to talk to you if you need support. Where there was a medic on staff, a photographer. They really cover all of the bases. And I think we ended up with like 3,000 photos of all of us. And it's just, they're part of my family now, is, you know, these people who played such an important role in transforming how I viewed myself after having gone through cancer. Because I was so early, I felt like I didn't belong there. Because a lot of the people that end up going are stage 2 or stage 3. And so I was kind of like in this in-between where I was like, well, I've gone through cancer treatment, but I didn't feel like I had gone through enough cancer treatment. You know, I went through radiation, but I didn't go through chemotherapy. And everybody's journey is different, and that was the beautiful thing about having that support group, is they were immediately like, what are you saying? Like, you had to go through all of the same treatments that we did. Like, you deserve to be here just as much.
And you said, but.
Yeah.
Like, but I didn't do this and this and this.
Yeah.
I feel like you could have somebody who has, you know, stage 3 cancer, and they've gone through A, B, C, D, and they have not done, I mean, everyone's story is different. Everyone's experience is different.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know, but it is a thing to bond you. What's the age range for first descents?
18 to 39, and that's at the time of diagnosis.
Okay.
So somebody might be over 39 and they were diagnosed at 38 or 39, but they really want to target the young adults. So that's that
And
age
they
group.
have, like I said, they have medics. So if there's people that are going, I assume there's some screening protocol to make sure, like, you know, if you're just finishing up with radiation and say next week, I want to go rock climbing, I imagine there's some process in between that to make sure that you're in a safe, supportive environment.
Absolutely.
What does that look like for them?
So they have a questionnaire that your overseeing oncologist fills out to say, like, yeah, these are the treatments that we did, this is where they are. Any medications that you're on, that goes to the First Descents medical team. They then review it, and they'll be in discussion with your doctor if there's any concern that there might be a problem with whichever program you're looking to do. But then, because you have a medic on staff, any medications that you need, you just bring along with you, and you know, you are under supervision.
And we had their website up there, firstdescents.org, and their intro video I watched. And what I liked, I mean, when I first watched that, and it said if I'm remembering this correctly, every 8 seconds someone is diagnosed, or a young person is diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
Like 8 seconds? Am I reading that even right? As I never look at my cheat sheet notes, but I'm sorry, 8 minutes. 8 minutes. But still, 8 minutes, a young person is diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
That just floors me.
Yeah.
And to have this organization there, but I think of it like, you know, I used to like roller coasters, whatever. To me, I see ice climb, like those pictures that you sent me, and be like, I can't do that. I assume that they give you some sort of training before just like plopping you, like, here you go,
Yeah.
you're hooked up, go.
Yeah, you're not thrown into the deep end.
Yeah.
So each of the programs they have guides that train you in whatever it is, and so we had kind of varying levels where some people had done mountaineering but not specifically ice climbing, but most of us were novices, and so they show you how to gear up, and then they showed, like for ice climbing, they showed us how to use the ice axes and how to actually get your crampons in when you're climbing.
What's a crampon?
Those are the spikes on your boots.
Okay. Always
that
learn a new term from you.
Yeah. So there's a special way where you kick in and then you drop your heels, and that locks in the crampon tips.
Okay.
So that when you're standing there, it feels like you're standing on flat ground, even though it's just your toes that are actually locked into the ice.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it is thrilling. But then, yeah, we went from, very beginner stuff to there were 4 days of climbing, and then the fourth day we actually lowered into an area, which meant you did your climbing throughout the day, and then you had to climb out at the end.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that must be tiring. No?
Yeah, it was. You want to make sure that you've got enough energy to
get back out
if
again.
If not, we'll see you tomorrow.
Here's some hand warmers.
Right. Well, and that was it, is like making sure that you're all geared up. So that was one thing that they were very proactive about, is making sure we had gear lists before we left. And then the climbing program, which is an adventure center in Colorado, they provided extra gear if we needed anything. So, I mean, they provided the helmets and crampons and ice axes. They also brought extra layers for you to put on. The lead guides or staff provided like extra hand warmers. So we were well covered. Our chef provided us with like mugs of tea.
So they're taking care of you.
Yeah, it was really amazing. And they clean up after you after your meals. So the focus really is on the participants being able to just enjoy every minute of it, and be taken care of and experience that and allow you to create the sense of community and joy in the environment that you're in.
So you're taking this to the next level yourself.
Yeah.
You started a project called Rock On.
Yeah, the
Rock On
Project.
Unintended.
Well, there's actually a story behind the name.
Okay.
So when we were learning, and something you do in rock climbing, which is where that comes from. But one of our lead staff, the climbing guides, was telling us, so you do kind of a belay check when you're going to be climbing to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
So the belayer is the person who's at the bottom, kind of like anchoring you with the rope. And so you ask if they're on belay on. So it's kind of this call back.
Oh, gotcha.
And so then you would do climb away is the one I learned for rock climbing. And so she was like, oh, there's another one where you do like on rock. And the response is rock on, dude. And so I just kind of like took that and I was like, we'll do the Rock On Project.
I like that.
Thanks.
They do, in Bedford, they do what's it called? The fifth graders do a Project Adventure, where it's a whole, there's belaying there, there's all sorts of, elevated, I can't, like a rocks, or a...
Like high ropes?
Thank you, yes. And the fifth graders do that as their project, which is very cool.
Yeah.
And I remember watching my kids do that, and I'm like, you're way high up there, but there's such support, and it brings that group together as a community of kids as they're going up into middle school and high school. And while it seems terrifying watching, and I've been belaying before, so when you're looking down, it seems like it's so long. And I think the highest one I did was like a 50-foot boulder, but it seems terrifying. But the support that's there too, and that somebody's on the other end of things who's there to take care of you.
Right.
And it sounds like that's what, that's a large part of what this is too. You're putting yourself really out there and putting your trust in these, people, but they are there for you, and their whole goal is to be there to support you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really just an unbelievable experience, and to be that support for other people as well, because we not only learned to climb, we also learned the belaying aspect. So you started with, kind of like the experts being the anchor, and then as the week went on, we learned to be that anchor for each other as well. And so it really just became this close-knit group. I remember there was one time, I think it was the third day of climbing, where I did slip. But while I got your heart pumping, I wasn't terrified because I knew there was somebody to catch me. So that if I fell, there was somebody there who was going to be my support net.
I feel like that's figurative and literal when you're talking about something like that.
Yeah.
Because you need that support net.
Right.
Yeah. So the Rock On Project, what are you looking for? What's your goal with this project?
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to take away from my experience was, I felt like I was able to reclaim my body and reclaim my sense of power and sense of self. And so I want to pay that forward. So I'm looking to gift 11 other young adults with being able to do the same experience. Okay. And so it's about $1,750 per person. So my goal is actually $20,000 to raise for First Ascents in order to pay forward this gift, which would benefit. Basically, it would sponsor a whole trip like I took. So everybody in that group would be covered for their expenses for that week.
And I would think that that's huge. I mean, aside from the fundraising aspect, you were mentioning to me earlier about the cost with treatment, with the whole, and I'm not going to get too much into the whole healthcare system at all. That's a whole other conversation. But the costs involved in going through treatment, which again, people don't talk about money a lot because that's, one of those, another taboo subject that, it's close and personal and not something that you want to share about with. But I think that's something that people don't understand is the immense amount of money that you had a great one-liner about you're investing so much of your financial self to benefit yourself. And that's a position that, not everyone's able to be in. And I would think it's something, really, I mean, it's your life, it's your investment, you're investing in yourself. Yeah. It's just unfortunate that, it's the amount of extreme money of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I was lucky enough that I was able to have the support of Mass Health specifically, but I think when I saw the actual price tag, the insurance company would have been about $198,000. So I'm worth a house.
Yes, you are.
And so, it really is. It's not just the treatment cost. Because I was outside of the usual age range, I actually wasn't going to be covered for all of the diagnostic, because it was diagnostic and not preventative at my age group. They weren't going to cover any of the actual, figuring out the testing to figure out how much was in there. And, in addition to that, then you have, you're out of work. And as somebody who doesn't, it's bad enough if you're sitting at an office chair trying to get through that, which is doable but not ideal. But as, somebody who I couldn't work, and then I could only work very, very limitedly during my radiation treatment, it was a severe blow financially.
Is there an option to have disability when you're out like that?
Yeah, part of it depends on your workplace. For me, I didn't really have disability because I was a part-time employee. So there was a little bit of support there. I actually benefited from a couple of other foundations. The Joe Andruzzi Foundation and the Ellie Fund both were very helpful for me in covering, rent for a month or covering grocery costs. So there are programs out there that are meant to support you during that time. They're very specific. So, there's, one for groceries, there's one for bills, and there are some things that they won't cover. But, that was another financial hurdle, was trying to work around that, especially being part-time where I didn't have disability specifically.
Well, I think it's fantastic that you want to give this. I mean, you found that gift and you were given that. And have you gone ice climbing since that time, or?
I haven't, because it was at the end of the ice climbing season.
Oh, true. It was February. Okay. So what do you have lined up for December?
Very last week, yeah. Actually, I have a few friends that want to go ice climbing up in Maine, New Hampshire, and the White Mountains.
Okay.
So I am still planning to continue to do that. And I've been in connection with some of the people that I went on the trip to Colorado with, and we're looking at different ways to all get together, and whether it's ice climbing or hiking or just kind of enjoying a weekend together, reconnecting. And we have a WhatsApp group, so we all stay in communication.
That's huge.
Yeah. It really was an ongoing sense. And it's not just the people that I went on the trip with, it's this whole community, because all of the people who volunteer for, all of the people who are staff for the organization, and then everybody who's gone on trips before. They actually have they call them tributaries in some of the cities. And so Boston has a local tributary. So everybody that's involved in the First Ascents tributary for Boston does, hiking trips or mountain biking, or they'll have classes at REI. So there really is a lot of support that's ongoing. It's not just one and done for that week-long trip.
So if people want to find out more information about your project.
Yes. Yeah, so I have a website. It's support.firstdescents.org/rockonproject. I have a bit more about my story, a lot of the stuff that I shared today. And then there's also the video, which is the intro video for First Descents, which is just about who they are and why they are.
It's a roller coaster of 2.5 minutes.
It's very emotional.
The first sentence, I'm like, whoa, blown away. And then what I picked up from watching the video was when they were kayaking, which I've gone not rough water kayaking before. So it's like, ooh, look at the pretty otters, you know. That's my kind of kayaking. But that's not what it was on the video. And my thought was that's not the athletic level that I'm at. It'd be awesome if I could be there. But what I liked was, or not at the beginning, but I saw someone who had tipped. Yeah. And I'm like, crap, she tipped. But then somebody immediately came over to her, flipped her back over, and she's like shaking it off, like she's okay. Yeah. And that moment for me hit home the message of what I think that they're trying to get out there. Like, yeah, you might flip over. Yeah, something might happen to you, but you have support here to literally and figuratively, flip you back over. Yeah. And help you get on your way. Yeah. Well, and then there's that, and there's also, there's been some research that First Descents has done. So they had studies in 2012 and 2015 to look at the psychosocial benefits of this program on young adults with cancer. And they just opened it up last year, like I said, to other serious conditions like MS. And they actually found that 87% of people actually reported an increase in self-efficacy. So they felt like they were better able to cope with their cancer diagnosis and treatment. They felt like they were better able to provide for themselves and better able to just, there was a 10% decrease in feelings of depression between pre and post trip. So it went from, I think, 17% to 7%. But you do actually get this feeling of like, oh, no, I am empowered, even though I've gone through this treatment and I feel like I had all of this taken away from me, that's not my sense of self. I'm more than that. And being able to then say hey, yeah, I went through that, and now I've done this amazing outdoor adventure that you might not have tried otherwise. For me, ice climbing is not something that was on my bucket list. And now I'm like, oh, I remember being, 60 feet on an ice sheet, anchored with 2 hooks and then the tips of my shoes. And you really do feel better able to take on the world and just move forward. And while it might seem scary, I think, to some people, life is short. No one knows what's going to happen. Yeah. And I don't mean that in a negative kind of way. It's just, you wait for things like, oh, I'll do this next week and I'll do that next month. But today is today. Yeah. And, taking the bull by the horns and what do you want your life to look like and how do you make that happen? Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that was one thing that I really took away from my treatment and also from First Descents, but really just the whole journey was, that now is the only time that we have. And so afterwards I made a whole lot of changes. I, started to work for myself. I really was prioritizing my health even more than I did before. And so while it was certainly not my choice, I felt like I really have a lot to be thankful for in going through my cancer diagnosis and treatment, and just all of the support groups that I've found along the way. And now you're becoming that support group from other people. Yeah. And you were a support person for me, which meant a lot to me, because it's hard for people to ask for help. Yeah. And so, looking out there for everybody, looking at firstdescents.org. Yep, support. /rockonproject. Right. And then, people can learn more about the project and how to help, whether that's financially or
There's volunteer opportunities. I know that each trip has like a medic and a chef and a photographer. So there's a lot of different opportunities to help. And with having the local tributaries, there's ways to be involved on a local scale. And then, you know, a lot of the bigger outings are in, I think there's one in Idaho, there's Colorado, there's California. So you can also go to places and volunteer to help on those trips.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they're a wonderful organization.
Well, I think the world is thanking you too for bringing this to everyone, and especially those people that are going to be going on this trip.
Yeah.
That you know, you're providing for all of them is fantastic.
I know. I'm so excited to be able to pay that forward.
Yeah. So I have one thing for you, and we're just being punny all day today, but I do make kindness rocks for people, and like being that you're rock climbing and you help save my foot, so I'm wearing like impractical heels today. I'm
Those will not save your
overcompensating.
feet.
No, I know. I won't go like rock climbing and these things, but I make. We had a kindness rocks episode because there's a garden here in Bedford. There's actually one in our studio now too. So I've been making kindness rocks for all my guests and like things that I think about them. So I'm like, what do I think about Johanna? You know, and I'm picturing being on the rock, and I'm like, well, there's the rock. So, so I have like little grass on there.
Oh.
I'm no artist, but you know.
No, it's beautiful.
And the interesting thing was, I usually paint them a different color. But when I think of you, I think of nature, and why would I want to paint over all that? And this is one of the rocks I found that like already had a whole bunch of different colors in it. So I didn't paint it other than stuff around there, which is little blue sky and clouds, and the sun, which was yellow, but apparently changed to green while it was drying. So yes, it's reflecting the grass.
Thank you so much.
So rock on.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Rock on, sister, as you know, for you and your project, and I admire you greatly, not just for your really cool pants and for helping me off the rocks, but for all the things that you're doing. You know, you who you are, I think, is a big inspiration. You know, aside from breast cancer survivors, I mean, for me, it meant a lot that you could be there and I could just put my trust in you, and I was fine. A little winded at times, but I was fine. And to give that back to people that are going through a tough time is huge to give forward. So thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on to talk about it because I really am very, very passionate about being able to give that gift to others and really provide a sense of community and joy and empowerment to people who are feeling like they're lacking it.
Yeah. And then I guess leads us out because, you know, everyone should feel empowered no matter what they're going through. And yeah, today is today, tomorrow's tomorrow, you know, live today for what it is. It might be raining outside here in Bedford, but, you know, it's raining outside and there are places where it's not, and they wish they had rain. So enjoy it. Enjoy the rain falling on your face when you leave today. Just watch you don't slip on a leaf or something. But I encourage you to just go out there and, you know, things that might have been on your bucket list, make a plan, you know, make it happen. It's your life, you know, think of what you want it to look like. So thank you so much for joining us live here with Johanna, and I hope you all have a fantastic day, and we'll see you soon for our next show. Bye-bye, everyone.